My draft number was coming up close, so I decided I wanted to go into airplane mechanics. So I enlisted September the 16th, 1941. And I was going to come home on a furlough, and the war broke out on December 7th for Christmas. I was coming home for Christmas, and the war broke out on December 7th. As far as between December 7th, when the war broke out, and September, was just ordinary boot camp action. You know, training, learn the close quarter drill, the what the hell did they call that? Commands or something, anyway. It was just all basic training, we'll put it that way. Then from basic training, I went to Biloxi, Mississippi, to an AM school that was just being opened up. And in that AM school, I come out with an average of better than 84, which automatically qualified me for an airplane mechanic instructor. So they kept me right there at Keesler Field as an instructor till I got tired of it. So I signed up for cadets to be a pilot. Now, passing cadet, you either had to have 2 years of college or pass the examination to the equivalent. Since I never went to college, I passed the examination. All right, I did. I got into there. I just soloed and was going pretty far, and I had this shack job up in I don't know, some town in Alabama there. So I went up to see her and got drunk that night with her, and next morning, a captain come over from Montgomery Field, Alabama, and give me a check ride, and he washed me out because I couldn't scratch my head over this before. Actually, what washed me out, they gave me a steep turn, and I'd only flew one of them before, and there's part of it I knew I was missing, and that was to get an elevation of better than 1,000 feet under you. So I just pulled into a steep turn about 500 feet and damn near crashed both of us. So that washed me out. From there, I signed up for gunnery school in Harlington, Texas, and went through the course of a gunner on B-17s. And when I got out of there, I was assigned to a crew. And we trained here in the States as a crew, and went over in England, I just see 43, November or December of 43, we landed in England. My pilot went on his first mission to learn how to handle the plane under combat conditions and got killed, our first pilot. So we was put up as spare gunners on different crews. If somebody was sick, why they needed a tail gunner, they come got me. I flew 7 missions that way. My first mission was a buddy of mine by the name of Mike White, who had flown in Corregidor and down through there and got MacArthur's furniture out. And he was sitting on an ammunition box that day, and the fighters was coming in, and we was both firing and working like hell, and the flak was coming. Well, the flak hadn't started to come yet. He says, "Hey, Snuffy, what would you think they'd think of us if they seen us at Castle Rock now?" You had little drops of water running down your leg, doing this goddamn hyper that you didn't know what. I said, "I guess they'd," what the hell did I say? I said I had some kind of a smart remark then. I wasn't that scared. But that was my first mission. Flew with an old buddy of mine there. We got acquainted in poker games. I'm trying to figure out. That mission turned out, except for a lot of flak. Now, flak is act guns that come up as 4 in a burst. And when you can hear it, with your headphones over you and everything else, you're getting damn close. So on we was flying over Augsburg, and a shell busted underneath us, and we had 16 holes in our plane when we landed. Now over Pas-de-Calais on one raid, a piece of flak that tore a hole with about 3 inches to 6 inches in diameter through the horizontal stabilizer about 8 inches from me. So if it had been over 80 or more inches, I wouldn't be telling this story. And another one up the Rural Valley did this another time. Had another hole shot in the side. It was about as close a call as that one was. So 2 times I missed death by that fall. On my 7th mission, we got a new first pilot. And so the whole crew flew together. On the 8th and on the 9th, we got shot down. We was lead squadron, and we'd been hit 7 times, and of the 7 times, 5 of them had put holes in us. And on the 7th pass, they was flying ME-109s, FW-190s, and JU-88s at us. And on the 7th pass, they shot third engine out, and the 4th one was running away, so we had to bail out. Now that's the first time and the only time I've ever bailed out of a plane. But they told us when we was training that if you ever bail out and the chute don't open, bring it back and we'll give you a new one. You know, unless you bail out, you know what story that is. As I was coming down that day, there was an ME-109 made a complete circle around me with his nose in, and I thought, well, here's where they make hamburger out of this child. But he just tipped his wings and took off. I landed in a plowed up field. Now this was March the 6th, 1944. As I was coming down, I see a group of civilians coming. Where we got shot, I go back a little, where we got shot down was 16 miles east of Berlin, right at the IP, just as we was turning, the IP initial point of turning, to go hit the target, which is the ball bearing factory on the outskirts of Berlin. Well, right there when them flares was shot is when we had to bail out. So that's why I figured I was 16 miles east of Berlin. Now on the ground there was this plowed field, and coming across from one side, I don't know which direction they was coming from, but about 15 civilians with their picks and their shovels and their forks. And on the other side there was one lone soldier coming. Well, we had been warned and told that if you can ever have to give up, try to give up to the military because they treated you with the Geneva Convention and respected you as a soldier. If the civilians got you, they would kill you. Because we'd been bombing them for months, years, a couple of years. And they didn't like us. We were Luftgangsters, terror fleekers. So that, I hit the ground. When I was coming down, I wanted to drift with the wind. And to be able to drift with the wind right so that you can land and roll, you have to pull your shroud lines to turn your chute, and I was going backward on it. But one thing I forgot to check was the height that I was when I started to pull the shroud lines. I spilled my chute, and it was just like a dead fall for 50 feet down into that frozen ground. And I hit my back so bad, actually it was on my tailbone. I couldn't get up. The soldier got to me first and picked me up and helped me on my feet. And he offered me a cigarette, which I didn't realize at that time was like offering you gold because they were so scared. The civilians turned around and left. I was took into a cellar, and there was 2/3 of the rest of my crew. There were only 2 missing. 2 waist gunners wasn't there yet. The next morning they loaded us in a truck, took us into Berlin, And lo and behold, we had a wreck with a beer truck right in the middle of Berlin about 5 o'clock in the morning. And we got away from that before the crowd started to gather. They took us to the marshalling yard to put us in cattle cars or stock cars to ship us to East Prussia. That's where Stalag Luft was located. Now the RAF had been hitting the marshalling yards of Berlin every night for quite a while. Boxcars blowed right through the walls 4 stories high because of the 2,000-pound bombs they'd been dropping. In other words, it was one hell of a mess there. We got out of there and we went on an eventful trip up to East Prussia on the Baltic Sea. That's where Stalag Luft, like I say, was located. We stayed there from March, April, May, and June, and the Russians started to make a big drive. And you could hear their guns, their big guns, off in the distance. They was that close to the prison camp, so we thought we was going to get liberated by the Russians. But the Germans loaded us in ore boats that had hauled ore from Sweden to Germany and took it down the Baltic Sea. So many men in the bottom of that boat that you kind of could pass out or go to sleep, and you just disappear in among the bodies in the boat. I sit on a propeller shaft piece about that wide for the whole, I think we was 2 days on that boat. When I got out of there, I couldn't even feel my butt. It was dead from sitting on that one spot and hanging on. One guy had gotten up, they had a bucket for him up on top. And he went up the ladder to use the bucket, made a run and jumped over the side, figuring to swim somewhere. And they just made a circle around him and shot him all to pieces and then kept right on going down. Because all the Ghost Sea. We went in at Frankfurt on the Oder, I believe, and they loaded us in cattle cars, handcuffed 2 of us together. And when we had evacuated Stalag Luft 6, they'd give us all the Red Cross parcels. Now, Red Cross parcels is the only thing that kept us alive, because German rations, we'd all died from starvation. But the Germans had wrecked this Red Cross trucks or wrecked a train, or looped the boxcars, so we only got about half of it half of the time. That's how scarce food was over in Germany. But when we evacuated Stalag Luft 6, each of us got a full package, which was 12 pounds, with her extra clothes, made a pack and put on her back to haul to the new camp. We was handcuffed with about 3 feet of chain or 2.5 feet between each prisoner onto their wrists. When they loaded us out of the boxcars, we had our packs on our back. They run us 4 kilometers just as hard as they could with guard dogs, German Shepherd, Doberman Pinschers. They'd turn their dogs loose and they'd come in and grab a guy by the ankles or the leg and tear him down. And then the guards would come in with bayonets and jab them to get them on their feet and run them again. Just to make them lose their packages or their back. Now there's an article right here that I'll let you read, and you can get an idea of that whole episode. Cut. Now after reading the article that I showed you on this here marching or running from the train station to, we called it the prison tea fighting. As I understood it that day, they killed 7 prisoners of war on that march. A friend of mine had 62 bayonet cuts in him. He had been handcuffed to a week malnutrition, or he looked like the people out of Antwerp, or the death camps. That's how skinny he was. But he made it, but he still had 62 bayonet cuts in him. About around that time, I started to lag a little and couldn't keep up very good. They made a pass at me with a bayonet, and I looked back over my shoulder, and it was within a couple of inches of me, and I dropped that back and just took off again. Just like putting the supercharger on, but I lost all my groceries and everything else. I wasn't going to be cut up with them bastards. We went into this camp at Tea Party, and the food was even worse than it was at Stalag 6, because they had to run trucks from Switzerland, and they had to run them at night, bringing the food in because they was getting strafed and blowed up by our own bombers, our own fighter planes. The German rations was so many kilograms of potatoes, just about 1/2 of a spud, 1/7 of a loaf of bread, which was just rolled in sawdust to save flour. I swear that you could, if you wanted to go in the lumber business, eat enough of it, you could put out 2 befores every time you went to the bathroom. Got to think for a minute now. Whenever an air raid would happen in town from where we was close to, they'd bring all the dead horses and that in for us to use for supplementary food. I seen a partner of mine, which is named Casey, a little bit of a horse wrangler from Nevada, reach a guy's belt and knock his eye out just for the marrow out of one of them horse bones. That's how hungry the guys was and how much meat meant to them. While we was in there, it was high enough. No, that happened up there. Got to go back. The daylight hours up in Stalag 6 was getting so that there was only 2 hours of darkness. The rest of the time the sun was out. One prisoner had to go to the latrine, which was down about 100 feet from the end of the barracks. He figured it was after 8 o'clock, which is the time they opened the doors. He walked down to the latrine, got just back pretty near to his door, and they shot him. He laid there and bled to death, and nobody dared go out and touch him, and they wouldn't send anybody in to take care of him. Now, there were several in our camp there at Tea Party that went berserk, stepped over the warning wire, which was taken from the Civil War in the U.S. here, which is one strand of wire about 50 feet from the edge of the main fence. And that is the warning wire. If you step over that, they'll shoot you. Well, several of them went berserk and climbed that fence. 2 of them that I know of, I heard about, never seen them. And they riddled them on the fence and left them there for 2 or 3 days as warnings. That's back to Stalag 6. Now we'll go back to Tea Party. I don't know, the rations, as I started to say, was so many kilograms of spud, which is 1 overrotten spud usually. Maybe they had what they call a fish paste. It was a brown, gluey-looking mess. And we always said that it was a dead airman they dug out of the bay and ground up for food. Could have been wrong. They had soap, little bars, about a little bigger than you get in hotels. And this, as I heard, was a fact that they'd rendered the fat off of the dead Jews to make that soap for us. So that's the soap we had. Now that soap did pretty good. I made me a set of wings with a full, that was the mold. So I got a lot of the cans and melted the solder off of them and poured into that mold with a brass button off of an overcoat in the center. And it made a set of wings about like that right there. and I sold them for cigarettes. And then I'd go gamble and I'd be broke in the next 2 hours. But I got so that I could handle hot lead with my fingers like as if there was nothing to it. And the forge I made to work it was one patty clay, or it was a thin can, about an inch in diameter, with meat in it of some kind. That was the funnel up to a pound coffee can, and holes in the bottom. I never took the lid off, I just pushed holes in the top. And I had an impeller in another coffee can made and put the lid back on. Then I took a piece of buckskin and a square shaft that I stole off of a door and made me a shaft that would turn it like a forge. And I could nail lead and nothing flat with that forge. A lot of them made them and used them to heat water to have coffee with. We had a lot of, in our Red Cross parcels, we got a little instant coffee. If it hadn't been for the Red Cross parcels and what little nutrition we got out of that, I think there'd been a bunch of dead POWs because it was starvation rations. Actually, you was starved so bad that when you got up on your feet off of the bed, you had to hang there for a couple of minutes to get rid of the dizzy spell because of your weakness. So the rations of the Germans wasn't enough to survive on. They knew it, they told our government that, but still, they still stole our groceries as they come in, or Red Cross parcels. We was liberated, not liberated, the Russians kept coming down, and we heard their guns again when we was there at tea fighting. So they moved us to an old Italian camp that had Italian prisoners in down to Nuremberg. Now them Italians must have been dirty people because there was all kinds of lice and fleas. You couldn't even put your hand down without fleas on you, or grayback lice. Every morning we had to go nitpicking out of our blankets to get rid of the fleas and lice because they just made big welts and sores on you when they bit you. Now Nuremberg got to be, patents started to come in at Nuremberg, so they mounted if I remember right, the column was 3 miles long, and we marched from Nuremberg to a town called Moosburg, just outside of Munich. But on that march, we were just going through a little town. I was lucky enough to be up in the front part of the marching tribe. The tail end was just going through the town, and I think 3 or 4 P-47s come out of the clouds and strafed and killed 7 of our men strafing that marshalling yard who took shelter under the car stand. That's a pretty bad deal to be strafed by your own troops and killed, I thought. Of course, I didn't get killed. In the time that I was in Nuremberg, if I remember right, we had been bombed daylight and nighttime 16 times. And we had to run out of our barracks and they dug slit trenches to get in so that the bomb dropped close so that it wouldn't kill you. So it's another case of getting bombed by your own troops. Oh, and talking about 16, and flying my combat missions, I did see 16 B-17s get shot down and watch the guys bail out from where we was flying about 32,000 feet.
What size, what was the kind of plane you was in?
B-17.
You was a tail gunner in the B-17?
Yeah, I was a tail gunner in B-17s. And that's what, I counted on the mission, the last mission I was on, we was up there, we was in the front position. And looking back, I counted 700 bombers behind us. And they claimed there was 1,000 bombers that day in the air, and they shot down 96 of them over Berlin. So that's 960 men lost in that one mission. I was one of them. I just one of them. I'm hitting and missing on some of the stuff. I see I was straight. Oh, and then we moved into it was an old gravel pit, and they had great big like circus tents. And we went into them tents with our bedding, and it rained, and the water come up and got your bed wet. You got wet. And about that time, Patton drove in and run the Germans out. And there was 9 SS troopers over in the woods just off back of us. So they set up their big guns and killed all 9 of them before that they'd give up. And that's where I was liberated in April of 29th, 1945. So that there covers, well, from there I went to Camp Lucky Strike, and from Camp Lucky Strike we got on a convoy and come home. I got home on June. What day in June I got home, but they give us a 3-month furlough. No, 30-day furlough. And then we had to go back.
You was a prisoner of war how many days?
421 days. From March the 6th till April of 44 until April the 29th of 45.
And how many guys would you say was in your prison camp?
There was better than 100,000 when we was liberated. Up there, and about 3,000 up in Stalag 6, but a lot of them was English. Some of the first prisoners they took was English, and there was a lot of them in that care compound too.
And there was, did you say there was 9 guys on your plane?
10.
10 guys, and
there was a navigator, bombardier. They was in the front end at that plexiglass end. And then right back to them was the pilot, co-pilot, then the engineer had the top turret above him. All right, on back, the radio operator and the ball turret gunner was just right there by the radio room. In the waist, there was the left waist gunner, the right waist gunner, and then the tail gunner, which was me.
And did you see after your plane got shot down, did you see everybody?
Yeah, in time when we got liberated, I never seen the officers until the last of but everybody that was in the plane got out alive when we got shot down. So they all come back home. Like the only one on any of my crew was the first pilot on their first crew that got killed on his first raid. The way he got killed is a direct hit in the bomb bay. We used to pack 12 500-pound bombs, and they hit one of them just right, and it blew up and blew the whole goddamn plane out of the sky. Except for one man. I ran into him in prison, and I asked him, I says, Bolsaki, how come that you're alive? You was in that plane with Hollinger and them. He says, I don't know. The last thing I remember is a big flash, and I come to and my chute was strung out alongside of me, and there I was laying on the ground.
So he fell out, and he wasn't even two.
Blew out.
He got blew out of the plane.
Yeah. And the chute come open by itself. Fate. Oh, you ought to heard some of them last missions of some of them guys.
Can you remember some of them?
Well, it was Bosworth, I believe his name was, or something. His plane got shot in 2, just ahead of the tail. Now his chute got all tore up when the flak tore his plane up. See, now you got a picture, 2 pieces of plane, engine and wings and the tail. Well, the tail butterflied down, and he walked away from it. From 30,000 feet.
He stayed in it?
Yeah.
just the air going up inside of it? Let it
No, it
come
was
down
the
easy?
stabilizer, the vertical and horizontal stabilizer, give it just like a glider. It would just glide and just butterflying down. Never build up enough momentum to really make a bad deal out of it. So then there was Red Moore that had one machine gun bullet in his leg that was laying there. They never took give us much medical attention. Then there was a guy from Texas had 4 in his legs. He had to sit out in the sun, and they wouldn't heal. My waist gunner got a hangnail and like lost his whole thumb because of the infection, because we wasn't proper nutrition and food and that. Oh, and that there D-Fighty, they put us out there first in little dog houses, a bunch of us. And next to me there was a Canuck. Now, Canuck is a Canadian airman, or a Canadian soldier. Lightning hit it and killed him deader than hell, right there in the compound. So, it, war, there's a lot of little things like that that I've, kind of forgot about. Not forgot about, but they just haven't brought up yet. They haven't come to them. Well, they're back in my memory some goddamn place. Like Big Stoop, a prison guard there. About 7 feet tall and weighed about 400 pounds and about as bright as Emery Wright. When we got liberated and Pat come in there, he was buddy-buddy with everybody. But he had been rough with 2 or 3 guys, and they caught him, cut his head off, and killed him right there.
And he was a German guard, huh?
Yeah. That was after the war was over, you might say.
What was your thoughts when the pilot said, we're going down and bail out?
I'll tell you now, this might seem strange to you, but in training in the U.S. here, there was a friend of mine had to bail out. And I asked him how it was. He says, hell, I could have smoked a cigarette. There isn't that much to worry about on the way down. And I thought, well, I'm going to take a chew of tobacco and see how that works on the way down. But I think I swallowed it when that there ME-109 made a circle around me, because I don't remember having it in my mouth when I landed. I'll tell you, that was a hair-raising thought for a minute.
When you was parachuting?
Huh?
When you was floating down?
Yeah, and that plane comes circling around with his nose. Whenever his nose was pointed in at you, boy. One time over Pas-de-Calais, Goring had a crack squadron that it was his men. They call them the Yellow Noses. And they were stationed in France. And them suckers come up behind us. And whenever planes would come towards the back of us, the tail gunner would usually tell a pilot to jump it, which means to make it jump like this, because the fighter plane had to move its plane, the whole plane, to get its gun on you, where you could bring your guns up and down, and when they jumping it, while you keep your guns on them all the time, and knock pieces of airplane off of them. That made them respect you, and they'd go away or go down. I think I killed one man. He was in an ME-109, and he come within 300 feet or so back between me and the next plane. And I held my guns down, and I see pieces of machinery of the plane fuselage fly off. And I seen him lean over his controls, and then it went through 10 tenths overcast clouds, and I never seen it hit the ground. But I'm as positive as I'm sitting here that I shot that plane down.
What was the reason you think that pilot didn't shoot you in the air when you was parachuting? That German pilot.
Respect for soldiers. You see, he was in the same position I was at. If he'd have been floating down and one of our fighter planes could have strafed him, the only ones that I heard that did it very much was the Japs. And they strafed a lot of our paratroopers here. They're bailing out shooting crews. But I think it was a respect for one soldier to another soldier that, because I still say it takes guts to get up in them goddamn crates and fly over that country. 10 hours on oxygen. I got better than 1,000 or 100 hours, combat hours. My life expectancy was 7 minutes in the air in combat. Tail gunner.
What do you mean by that?
That, because of the number that was killed and the number put up, is what it averaged out, 7 minutes.
7 minutes in the air.
Combat. Not in the air, in combat.
In combat.
We'd fight our way in and fight. I'd take 1,700 rounds of ammunition for my 2 guns. Now, I have twin 50 caliber machine guns in a big ammunition box on each side. And on 4 of my raids, I'd burned up the barrels. I'd fired so fast and so much. And I also, most of my raids, I'd come back with empty ammunition boxes. I figured I shot 15,000 rounds of ammunition at the Germans. That's in combat. I shot thousands of rounds training, but right in combat I shot 15,000 rounds. I bailed out of that airplane for 10 years after I got home. After this little episode, I'll bail out of it again for 3 or 4 days.
After talking about it, huh?
Yes, it brings back too many memories. Not that I care. It done me good to get these memories back and get them out of my system. So, if there's questions you got, and if I run into anything, I'll just add it to it. But feel free to ask what you want.
Okay. Okay, this is a BT-17.
PT, primary trainer. PT-17 steerman.
It's a plane with all the let's see, all them men or what?
Cadets.
Cadets.
Pilot. Taking pilot training. Vandergraaf Field in
That was in Alabama.
Alabama, yeah. I can't remember the name of that town. This is a prisoner of war medal that the Act of Congress just passed, and I just got it a year ago.
That's the one on the left.
Yeah, this one. These is your Air Force wings that air crewmen got. This is the Air Medal, which I've got an oak leaf cluster for it set on my discharge, that was issued for 5 raids over over enemy territory. And it was issued to me signed by Doolittle.
And Doolittle was?
The commander that flew off of carriers, aircraft carriers, and bombed Japan in the middle of the war. They flew on over to China and landed. Diana Darling, and that was our plane that was assigned to us when the crew went back together as a full crew. Now these are the guys I trained all with in the States, except Kennedy here, whatever his name is. And he was our new pilot. I don't know where in the hell he is. But this plane I got shot down in, that's the one that I was in when I got shot down 16 miles out of Berlin.
It has a gunner in the front nose and a glass.
Yeah, it had 10 gunners. It had, this is a navigation gun.
And the guy sits in the nose, huh?
2 of them.
2 guys sitting in the nose.
Bombardier and the navigator. See, this is where the bomb sight is right behind there. Northern bomb sight. This is the top turret where the engineer sat. In there, it was a hydraulic turret. And this is where the pilot and co-pilot.
This is Curtis with his...
Sergeant Curtis Moore, in the picture that was in the Summit County Bee back in '43.
He's got, what size machine gun is that?
30 caliber.
You're in your...
I was in gunnery school at that time.
30 caliber.
My guns was 250 caliber Browning machine guns.
How old was you about that time?
I went in when I was 23, so I was about 24 here.
Okay, this guy here we're showing you now is Melvin Shaw from Coville. He was a prisoner of war over there. And these here dog tags, I'll have him tell you the
This
big
is a
square
regular Army dog tag here. Gives your name, rank, and serial. No, it gives your name and serial number and your blood type and your religious type. You have 2 of these. When you get killed, they take one of them off and send back and leave one on you. This is Stalag prisoner of war tags that serves the same purpose as the Army dog tags.
Now it's split in the middle.
So that it can be broken too and send one back to the United States government and keep one on your body.
If you get killed.
Yeah.
And they gave that to you when you entered the prisoner of war camp?
That's Stalag 6. Yeah, it was, we called them black-eyed peas because everyone had a little black dot on it. But when you opened it up, it was just the head of a bug just about ready to come out of the pea. So the guys didn't like it too much, so they give me their share, and I pretty near got fat on it.
That was part of your meals over there.
That was your rations from the Germans.
Something they didn't want to eat.
That's right.
And it was a bug getting ready to come out of the shell, huh?
Right. How to eat the whole inside out. All you got was actually a bug and the outside cover. It was a fat bug, you eat all the inside. European, African, Middle East, Eastern Service ribbon with 5 bronze stars. Now each star was a silver one until you got 5 of them. No, each star was a bronze star until you got 5 of them, and then you got a silver star. Each star represents a battle you fought in. So I had 5 battle stars. Then there was the Air Medal with 1 oak leaf cluster, American Defense Service ribbon, American Theater Service ribbon, 3 overseas bar, Victory Service ribbon. That's it. That's my medals, my fruit salad. Schools, military occupational specialty number. Airplane mechanic gunner, 748. That's the battle inside. Where the hell am I? Wounds received. Oh, service schools attended. Aerial Gunner School, Harlingen, Texas. Airplane and Engine and Mechanic School, Keesler Field, Mississippi. Instructors Training School, Chanute Field, Illinois. That was the school I went through.
So you went in the service before the war even broke out?
Yeah, September and the date of separation, 16th. Tech Sergeant, Air Crew, Regular Army. Yeah, I was in the Regular Army. I wasn't a draftee. September the 16th, I think, 1941. Oh, here it is. Date of enlistment, 23rd of September, 1941. Sorry. So I was in there for 4 years, 1 month, and 20 days. From Fort George Wright, Washington State. November 16th, 1945. my squadron was well, here's my, let's see, Sergeant. 322nd Bomb Squadron, 91st Bombardment Group, 8th Air Force, England. That's where I flew out.
Okay, this is a story.
Still got to remember something, an incident that happened. I had a waist gunner by the name of Wayne Sabins from Roundup, Montana. Now, he come to the waist door, and he was scared, I guess, but he wanted to hook the shroud line, which was hung on the side of the door to throw wounded personnel out, so the chute would open after he got away from the plane. Well, instead of reaching over to get the shroud line, he reached his ripcord and pulled it over to hook onto the shroud line, and his whole chute bellowed open right in front of the door, as he was where he was going to bail out. So the other waist gunner by Hank Zagowski, Polacks from Cleveland, Ohio, I think, kicked him in the ass and out he went. And the chute strung right by me. I was still in there looking up the length of the plane to see how I didn't want to be first out. And the chute just went right by me and missed the horizontal stabilizer, and he went out normal, and I seen him on the ground. He wasn't hurt that much.
But he was scared to death.
Yeah, I think he was scared. I don't know if somebody didn't find a laundry after that, there's something wrong with him. But that then, I just happened to think of that there episode there with Sabins when he reached over and pulled the ripcord to hook onto the shroud line instead of pulling the shroud line over to hook onto the ripcord.
I was going to ask you, how many holes do you think was in your plane the day you bailed out?
My radio operator said he reached down to pick up his flak suit, and a whole string of bullets went right across the top of his back right there. A whole string of them in the radio room, and shot it up. But I never seen it, because I do know that there was 3 engines shot out, and the 4th engine had lost hydraulic pressure, and they couldn't feather it, or and it couldn't fly on one engine anyway.
Did you ever see it crash, the plane?
No, I didn't, but the pilot did. They seen it off out there. They was the last ones out, the pilot and co-pilot.
So it went a few miles before it ever went down, huh?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, them two holes alongside me where it pretty near got, I mean, I still think it's a book of fate that wrote that if you're going to get it, you're going to get it, and it's your day, you'll get it that day. Like I told Ron down there in Nelson in the hospital. The doctor just come in 2 hours before and says, well, with that there X-ray showing that 5 years old, you don't have to have an operation, so we send him home. Book of fate, the guy come in just 2 hours, and they had him cleaned up and ready to go to the operating room. But that's what I mean by fate. Like Volsaki when the windmill down in this plane, tail of this plane.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I mean by fate. The last mission, some of those was the hairiest. Some of them guys had their ears burn off, their faces all burned up from oxygen explosion and fires. And they had a little surgical work, but not much.
Just enough to keep them alive, huh?
That's it. Bandages was paper. No cloth bandages, no gauze. Maybe if I sit here and dream about it, I can get up more, but right now
Well, this is a little history about Curtis Moore when he was in the World War II war and over Germany. And we took this film on June 6th, 1991 at Castle Rock, up where he lives. And I think this will probably about end it.
This is a battlefront. A battlefront like no other in the long history of mankind's wars. This is an air front. The working day begins, as it will end, with the ground crews, as much a part of the fortress as her wings. If you're a mechanic, you've got your own bomber. You get attached to it. But you know when your ship goes out on a mission, you may never see it again. So you do your work as well as it can be done, perfectly, because you wouldn't want anything to go wrong that would be your fault. Today, the bombs will be taken from these bomb dumps somewhere in England and delivered to specific points in Wilhelmshaven, Germany. To deliver them is the job of the 8th Bomber Command, just a hauling job, yet one of the most difficult and complicated of military operations. General-purpose demolition bombs, impact velocity as high as 750 miles an hour, pierce 5 inches of armor plate, destroy a factory. Briefing at 0800. Pilots, bombardiers, and navigators take their places. The group commander, Colonel Stanley Ray, steps up to the target map, and for the first time, you learn where you're going. Sometimes your face turns white when you find out. Sometimes the feeling you won't come back tightens your insides. Not so long ago, you were sitting like this in a college or high school classroom, not listening too hard, perhaps even a little sleepy. But you listen here. And as you listen, you don't have time to think of yourself. Fear fades. You concentrate on the mission. Type of formation, assembly point, 0 hour, route to target, weather, enemy fighters, enemy flak, route back home. If forced down in enemy territory, destroy equipment. If taken prisoner, give no information. Name, rank, and serial number. That's all. These are the passengers with one-way tickets. And this is the crew of the Memphis Belle, 324th Squadron, 91st Heavy Bombardment Group. Just one plane and one crew in one squadron, in one group, of one wing, of one Air Force, out of 15 United States Army Air Forces. Well, fellas, we've never had an easy ride over there yet. And today won't be any different. No escort except unfriendly. So keep your eyes peeled. Don't get excited and yell when you're talking on the intercom. Save your ammunition and make your shots count. And let me know what goes on back there, Quinlan. Yes, sir. Stay on the ball, gang, and she'll bring us back like she's always done. Okay? Let's go. They have completed 24 missions. In this, the toughest theater of air war, the big league of sky fighting. Their experience is priceless. And so, if the Memphis Belle comes back this afternoon, they will be sent to bring the vital lessons they have learned to thousands of air crew men in training at home. Home is America. Is a battlefront, like no other in this or any war. No monster armies, no booming cannon. Only the roaring engine sound of the bombers pounding through the quiet English countryside. This is an air front. they'll leave the soil of England for the 25th time. The friendly soil of England, with its ordered farms and rural hamlets, its country estates surrounded by formal gardens and well-kept parks. The England these Americans knew only from the classics they had to read in school. The England of the towns and cities, whose people have defended their island's freedom for over 1,000 years. But today, their countryside has changed. Today, their island has been converted into a gigantic bomber field, a super aircraft carrier anchored off the shores of Fortress Europe, with hangars and machine shops, with hundreds of dispersal points, perimeter tracks, and concrete runways. This is England in its 5th year of war. And this is the new battlefront, the air front, from which we seek out the enemy. Not his infantry or his artillery, not his panzer divisions, but the greater menace, the industrial heart of his nation, the foundation on which the Nazi Empire and its armies stand, the power behind the German lust for conquest. The steel mills and refineries, shipyards and submarine pens, factories and munitions plants, pinpoints on the map of Europe which mean rubber, guns, ball bearings, shells, engines, planes, tanks, targets. Targets to be destroyed. And these are the destroyers, each with a belly full of bombs, and 10 men like the crew of the Memphis Belle. Pilot Captain Robert Morgan, industrial engineer from Asheville, North Carolina. He's flown this ship across the Atlantic. The other pilot, Captain Jim Verinis, business administration student at the University of Connecticut. Radio operator and gunner, Sergeant Bob Hansen, construction worker from Spokane, Washington. Navigator, Captain Chuck Layton, chemistry student at Ohio Wesleyan. Engineer and top turret gunner, Sergeant Harold Locke from Green Bay, Wisconsin. Used to be a stevedore. Besides keeping the Belle in order, he covers the sky above. Tail gunner, Sergeant John Quinlan of Yonkers, New York. Clerked for a carpet company, but he quit December 8, 1941. Bull turret gunner, Sergeant Cecil Scott. Pressman for a rubber company in Rahway, New Jersey. Pilot to crew, 10,000, put on oxygen. They're climbing higher now, 300 feet a minute. The strain on the planes and on the men is mounting. The rest of the crew, Bombardier Captain Vincent Evans, operated a fleet of trucks in Fort Worth, Texas. Waist gunners, on the right, Sergeant Bill Winchell, chemist for a paint company in Chicago. And on the left, Sergeant Tony Nastal, used to repair washing machines in Detroit when he was a kid. Now he's 19 and has 2 Nazi fighters, confirmed. It takes all of a pilot's strength to keep a 30-ton fortress in tight formation. But the formation is the bomber's best defense against enemy fighters. The planes are deployed to uncover every gun, stepped up and down, echelon to the right and left, arranged to overcome the danger of gunners firing into friendly ships, arranged so concentrated cones of fire from the caliber 50 machine guns cover the sky for 1,000 yards in every direction. The friendly coast of England slips by below. It doesn't look like much now, but in a few hours when you come back, if you come back, this will be the most beautiful view in the world. Higher and higher, climbing to reach your best operational altitude, 25,000 feet, 5 miles straight up. So high you can't be seen from the ground with the naked eye. So high that after 1 minute without oxygen, you lose consciousness. After 20 minutes, you're dead. From now to the target, you go about your routine duties, plot your course, check your equipment, and wait, and think. Higher and colder. Temperature, 40 degrees, below zero. Take off your glove and you lose some fingers. You look out at the strange world beyond, reflections in plexiglass, like nothing you ever saw before, outside of a dream. Higher and higher into the lifeless stratosphere, until the exhaust of the engines mixing with the cold, thin air condenses and streams the heavens with vapor trails. To the men in the ships, they're far from beautiful, for they point like beckoning fingers to the formation, signposts in the sky for the enemy to spot us. To accomplish their mission, a plan is needed. Carefully worked out, timed to the minute. The job is to bomb Wilhelmshaven effectively and economically. The enemy is strong, skillful, determined to stop us. Here are his defenses. Airdromes, well dispersed. Each plane indicates a stopple or squadron of fighters. Heavy anti-aircraft, highly trained and accurate, all along the coast and defending his vital installations. Radar to warn him of our coming. Here is our plan to divide his defenses and weaken his opposition. At 13:30 hours, shortly after takeoff, 6 groups of planes will be heading toward the enemy coast from 6 directions. The Blue Force, 100 B-24 Liberator 4-engine bombers. The White Force, 300 B-17 Flying Fortresses. The Green Force, 300 B-17s with an escort of 6 squadrons of P-47 Thunderbolts. A force of B-26 Marauders, twin-engine medium bombers with 6 squadrons of RAF Spitfires escorting. Almost 1,000 planes and over 8,000 men in the air. The enemy alerts all his airdromes. But which is our main force? What are our targets? Where should the Nazi controllers send their fighters? It's our job to make them guess, and guess wrong. A half hour later, at 1400 hours, the Blue Force will be heading east across the North Sea with the White Force following. These enemy fighters are tied down, waiting to meet them, and will not be able to attack the Green Force. These fighters must come up to attack the Green Force, and thus will be no threat to the Blue and White Forces. The B-26s and Spitfires will bomb and strafe a key rail junction, diverting these 6 Stockholm and preventing the enemy from concentrating too many fighters on the Green Force, which is scheduled to bomb an aircraft factory at Hanover. At 14:30 hours, the Blue Force will threaten this entire coastal area of northwestern Germany. Which target will it be? Flensburg? The Kiel Canal? Or will it turn suddenly and bomb Hamburg, Vegesack, or Emden? Actually, it carries no bombs at all. It's a decoy and keeps the fighters from the northern area busy while the White Force, the main effort, heads for the submarine pens of Wilhelmshaven. At 1500 hours, while the White Force is over its target, only a fraction of the available German fighter strength of the area can intercept it. Because of the Blue Force diversion and the simultaneous bombing of Hanover by the Green Force. This is the plan of battle for today, drawn up by the Combined Operations Planning Committee and approved by the Commanding General. The White Force, lead group, low squadron. We've crossed the invisible line of enemy radar. The Hun is expecting us. Steel helmets go on. Watchful eyes strain. Tight formations are held tighter still. Tense gunners more alert because here it comes. The enemy coast. From up here, it looks the same as any other. Houses, roads, green fields, factories, waterways. But they are the houses and fields of those who invade and oppress. They are the factories and roads of the people who twice in one generation have flooded the world with suffering, suffering in such quantity as the history of the human race has never known, brought torment and anguish into countless American homes. Gold stars and telegrams from the War Department. The first plaque, just harmless-looking, silent puffs of smoke. Only each puff is a shell exploding, throwing shrapnel around the sky. Exactly the range, accurate plaque by radio prediction. 5 miles down, Nazi anti-aircraft batteries have calculated the altitude, speed, and course. Where will the next one hit? You try not to be there. The docks and submarine pens of Wilhelmshaven. Approach to the target starts. No smoke screen can protect it. Now the enemy knows the path of your approach and walls that path with a flak barrage. But you fly right through it. Flak so thick you can get out and walk on it. Morgan changes course every 15 seconds. Evasive action to confuse the flak batteries. Bomb sight set for correct altitude and speed. Bomb bay doors open. The bombing run begins. Pilot to bombardier. Okay, Vin, you've got it. Now Evans flies the Memphis Belle, controlling it through the bomb sight. And now we are most vulnerable. Committed to our bombing run, we can't dodge flak or fighters. Here's the first. Top turret fires at him. Evans must ignore the battle. Crosshairs lined up on target. Adjustments for wind drift made. 2 more fighters diving from 9 o'clock. Flak now has the range too. They've hit this fort, but he keeps on his bombing run. As lead bombardier, Evans' aim must be good. Every other ship in the group will drop its bombs when he drops his. Now one pointer on the bomb site moves toward another stationary pointer. The instant they touch, bombs will release. They touch. Bombs away. Half of the mission is over. The easy half. Now to get home. The flak stops. That means fighters out there somewhere. A staple lurking behind that cloud. Or hiding up in the sun where the glare blinds you and you can't see them, waiting to dive down on you. Fighters at 6 o'clock. This is what a gunner sees. A speck in the sky. That's a fighter. And then a blink. That means he's firing at you. 2,300 rounds a minute. In a running battle, one of the most important instruments is the interphone.
o'clock high.
They're coming around. Watch it.
Two fighters, 6 o'clock up, coming in. Diving out, Chief.
B-17 in trouble out at 2 o'clock, watching.
Got an engine on fire.
There's 2 more diving through the 94th.
3 planes, 9 o'clock, coming around. Keep your eye on the board. Coming around to 10.
Watching, so keep your eyes open.
They're breaking 11, breaking 11. I got them. Coming around underneath at 10 o'clock. I see them. 2 at 2 o'clock.
Watch them, Scotty.
I got my sights on them. Check that B-17, Chuck, 3 o'clock. Motor smoking. Fighters, 10:30, coming around.
Those 10:30 upper or lower?
B-17 out of control at 3 o'clock.
Come on, you guys, get out of that plane. Bail out. There's one. He come out of the bomb bay.
Yeah, I see him.
There's a tail gunner coming out.
Watch out for fighters. Keep your eye on them, Bill.
See any parachutes, Quinlan?
Parachutes up light at 9 o'clock.
8 men still in that B-17. Come on, the rest of you guys. Get out of there.
Come on, Bill.
So far, there's 3 more shoots. Flag, 11 o'clock.
Fighters, 6 o'clock.
ME-109 at 3 o'clock. Keep after him, Mitchell.
I see him. I'm on him. Come on, you son of a... I got him.
Confirm that fighter.
He got him, Chief. Look, he's bailing out.
Damn it, don't yell on that intercom. Fighters, 10 o'clock.
Watch those 2 and 12, man. They're coming in.
They're coming in, Scotty.
Get that ball turret on him.
Save the ammunition as much as possible.
Watch that fighter coming in at 3 o'clock.
He's coming in a half roll. Pull her up, Chief. Pull her up. Hurry. This fortress is hurt. Engine on fire, losing airspeed and altitude. Drifting into the flak, alone and helpless. A straggler. In a minute, Nazi fighters will swarm in like buzzards for the kill. You can watch, but you can't go down to help. You keep your formation.
Here, too, the mission is being flown. None the less real for being in the minds and hearts of these men behind. Ask anybody who's been to a field in England or anywhere else our bombers are based, and he'll tell you that there's drama here, too. Waiting to see who's coming back. To watch them, you might not realize how tense these ground crews are. But they are tense, and plenty worried. In Air Force talk, this waiting is known as sweating out the mission. These men know the flight plan. Their watches told them when the bombers were running into enemy flak, when they were over the target, when they left the enemy coast. And now their watches tell them the bombers should be nearing the field. Every ear strains for the first sound of the engines. And then somebody hears them. And somebody sees the first faint specks in the distant sky. Every face turns to see and count. The watchers try to read the numbers on the ships. These planes have priority to land first. The colored flares mean wounded aboard. In the hospital window, these watching men know what that means. They know what it feels like to lie on a bouncing fortress floor for hundreds of miles through the frozen stratosphere in great pain, with the other men in your crew fighting to keep you alive until they hit the field. The field. Home. It'll be okay then, because there'll be medical care, the best, as soon as the wheels of your plane stop rolling. Head wound. Concussion. 20-millimeter cannon shell exploded in his radio compartment. shock, internal injuries. He'll be all right, though. Flak burst scattered flying shrapnel. He's full of steel splinters. This pilot's leg is not a pretty sight. Neither are the docks at Wilhelmshaven. These men will all get the Purple Heart. And this man, too, posthumously. A transfusion right in the plane. This gunner is too weak to be moved. The new life-giving blood flowing into his veins might be the blood of a high school girl in Des Moines, a miner in Alabama, a movie star in Hollywood, or it might be your blood, whosever it is. Thanks. 36 planes left this field this morning. Now 6 more arrive. That makes 20 home. And this one's 21. More wounded aboard. .22, coming in with his left inboard engine dead. .23, with a feathered prop on his left outboard engine. .24, Southern Comfort, with a chunk of tail gone. .25, they flew home on their luck. .26, not a scratch. The control tower learns that 2 more landed at a British field to the south. 1 a crash landing, crew safe. That makes 28. 29. A rough landing, but her pilot's badly hurt. It's a wonder he brought her back at all. 29 planes back, so far. 29 out of 36. Our losses were heavy, but the enemy's were far heavier. We destroyed a German aircraft factory, a rail junction, submarine pens, docks, and harbor installations. That's specific, known damage. But who can tell the number of German torpedoes that will not be fired, the number of our convoys that will get through now, the soldiers and seamen's lives that will be saved, or the battles that will be won instead of lost because of what these bombers and airmen did today. Pilot and tail gunner. They can laugh now. Fire on the inboard engine did this. Flames streaked back and burned the stabilizer, too. Another crew luck brought back. Here's old Bill. A pretty good airplane when it took off. Lost its nose, lost its navigator, bombardier wounded, top turret gunner and pilot hit, hydraulic system shot out, no brakes, no flaps, but old Bill came back. Now, among the returned crew members, talk flows like a river, talking out every detail of the mission. These are the faces of combat. Faces of Americans who have watched their comrades die. Faces that can never forget the enemy. And they're in no mood to have their picture taken. In the control tower, Colonel Ray, the group CO, is still watching and waiting. And then he spots the last flight. 3 more planes. And one of them is the ship everyone has been pulling for.
The Memphis Belle. The last few miles of this trip have been a joyride. The strain is over. They can leave their guns now. Now they know they're going to go home. To Spokane, Green Bay, Asheville, Detroit, Chicago, Fort Worth, and Yonkers. bell comes in for her landing. But first Morgan buzzes the field, cuts the grass with the giant fortress. It's against the rules, but this is a special occasion. Memphis Belle come back to the soil of England for the 25th time. This is a day they will never forget. Another great day soon after, Brigadier General Hansel visited the field and presented the Distinguished Flying Cross to every member of the crew. And then there was another day. Their Majesties, the King and Queen of England. Johnny Quinlan never thought anything like this would happen to him when he left Yonkers. The ground crew were a little self-conscious about being dressed in fatigues, but the Queen thought they were very nice. Finally, two more visitors came. General Acre, commanding the 8th Air Force, and General Devers, U.S. commander of the European Theater. The Bell crew received them in flying clothes, as General Acre read the order for what he called their 26th and most important mission. Return to America to train new crews and to tell the people what we're doing here. To thank them for their help and support and tell them to keep it up so we can keep it up. So we can bomb the enemy again and again and again until he has had enough. And then we can all come home. The men of the 8th Air Force, who are now flying deep into Germany, bringing destruction to targets almost 1,000 miles from their bases. Destruction like this. And who have never once been turned back by the enemy. To those men, this film is gratefully dedicated.
Hey, Joe! Joe!
Yes, Sam?
Take a look at today's timetable. Only one of these trains can get through to Washington. 44 is a single track, you know.
Yeah, but Sam, aren't the American people on board the Win the War special?
Well, all but a few wreckers. You see that switch, Joe? You've got to sidetrack the Defeatist Limited.
I'm just the guy that can do it, Sam.
Look, Joe, you can, if you don't fall asleep at the switch like you did in November of 1942. Asleep!
Don't worry about me. They'll have to knock me out first.
at all, not at all. Glad you dropped in, my boy. Glad you dropped in. But you're looking a bit peaked, Joe. That slave driver Sam's been overworking you. You're run down, high production pressure. Relax now. Relax. Have a cigar.
Oh.
Let's talk this over, my boy. According to the papers, you're on the wrong track. It says here that the Win the War special isn't going through. All the workers are on strike. That's a lie. We're out to win the war. War! I tell you, this is Roosevelt war.
High in the sky when you die.
Not only are we the farmer's best friend, but we stand forswear on a platform of return to normalcy. I tell you, inflation's red tape. It's globe ballooning. It's perfectly clear to everybody. Sacrifices, higher prices, eat the axes. Lower tax, no land lease, negotiate a peace. Democracy is bureaucracy.
Joe, he's lulled you to sleep again, Joe.
Sales tax, Joe. A little sales tax never hurt anybody. After all, Joe, business is entitled to a fair profit during this war. But wages have to be frozen, Joe. The workers are making too much money for their own good. And prices haven't risen very much, have they, Joe?
Wait, Joe. There's a better way. Mind if I smoke? Yeah. Suppose you watch my smoke for a change. No, wait. I have influence in Washington. This is treason. This is for Uncle Sam.
Win the war, win the war. Here's the way to win the war. You gotta get out and vote. To get the things we're fighting for, fighting for, fighting for. To get the things we're fighting for, we gotta get out and vote.
Clinch the happy ending on the Tokyo, the Berlin, and the Rome front. The fellow with the bullet is depending
On the fellow with the ballot on the home front. Oh, we wanna have a better world, better world, better world. Wanna have a better world, we gotta get out and vote. Now we're on the right track, right track, right track. Now we're on the right track, we're gonna win the war. Right behind the president, president, president. Right behind the president for 1944.
With management and labor, we'll keep our production humming. So go and tell your neighbor that the new world special is coming.
Get your reservation now, for a greater nation now. Get your reservation now.
How? Soldiers, all aboard for severance pay, disability insurance, free training and education, free employment with no delays.
Gotta get out and vote.
Farmer, got your ticket for crop insurance, floors under prices, adequate credit, decent marketing facilities, fair price for what a man grows.
Gotta get out and vote.
Big business, all aboard for a $200 billion national income, full production, world trade, but no pushing and no crowding. Small business, protection from big business.
Gotta get out and vote.
Labor, job for everyone. Full employment, full production, annual wage, good housing, social insurance, security in your old age. All aboard!
All aboard! There'll be a job for everyone, everyone, everyone. There'll be a job for everyone if we get out and vote. You wanna have security, security, security. Wanna have security, you gotta get out and vote.
They're growing big red apples that Hoover is promoting. If you don't want to sell those apples, start voting, man, start voting.
Oh, get behind the president, president, president. Get behind the president. We wanna win the war. Right behind the president.